Hi, this show talks about books that feature mental health and mental illness topics. The discussion will be from the point of view of mental health professionals. There are many books that include this topic, and my hope is that more and more people know about them because they help to decrease the stigma and help people not feel so alone in their struggle. I am your host, Robyn Tamanaha, licensed marriage and family therapist. Welcome to the bonus episode. Today, I will be talking about my most anticipated books for 2020. These are books that will be coming out throughout the upcoming year. These range in ages from children, teens, and adult, as well as different genres. Some of these books may be on future episodes of this podcast, but they will not be the only books. I do have books that I read this year already that I will be recording into episodes. And I will continue having guests on the podcast where we discuss books of their choice. Also, I received emails from you. It has been great receiving emails from you listeners with book suggestions, so I will be reading those books as well, and some of them may end up being an episode on this podcast. So I have a pretty extensive list of books that will be coming out in 2020 that I'm really excited for. So let's get started. The first book is The Good Egg Presents The Great Egg Escape by Jory John and Pete Oswald. This is a children's illustrated book recommended for ages 4 to 8 years old. This is a sequel to The Good Egg. The Good Egg was a story about an egg who felt it had to be good all the time, even when others were not. Eventually, the egg started to crack from having to be perfect. In the sequel, The Great Egg Escape, an egg has some worries about being a part of group activities. So I get a sense that this story is about some social anxiety and stepping outside of the box to overcome it. This book comes out February 11th. The next book is Pew by Catherine Lacey. This is an adult fiction. When I read the description of this book, I was very, very intrigued and immediately hooked. This book, it takes place in an unnamed town in America, where one day members of a church arrive for service and find a figure asleep on a pew in the church. This person does not have a gender, is racially ambiguous, and doesn't talk. The members of the community see different and conflicting identities in this person. While this person listens and watches the members of the community, this person sees flashes of past lives of theirs and origins of the townspeople. Even though the person is nice, people in the community become suspicious. The description of the book reads, "The writer holds up a mirror to her characters' true selves, revealing something about forgiveness, perception, and the faulty tools society uses to categorize human complexity." This book comes out May 12th. The next book is Snapdragon by Kat Lay. This is a graphic novel. It's recommended for ages 10 to 14 years old. This is about a girl who befriends the town witch, and they decide to help each other. This novel includes multiple different topics, such as communication, not fitting in and feeling different, support, friendship, and gender identity. It's said one of the characters in the novel is transgender. This graphic novel comes out February 4th. The next book is Why Can't We Sleep by Ada Calhoun. This is an adult book. In this book, the author takes a look at what she's been experiencing, which is her feeling miserable. As part of the Generation X, born from 1977 to 1984, Ada discusses some issues that middle-aged Gen X women face, such as housing costs, HR trends, credit card debt averages, and divorce data. She unearths how middle-aged Gen X women are, quote-unquote, exhausted, terrified about money, underemployed, and overwhelmed. This book comes out January 7th. The next book is Just Breathe by Cami McGovern. This is a young adult fiction about chronic illness and mental health. This book is about two characters who create an unlikely bond. One is a boy battling cystic fibrosis, and the other is a girl living with depression. They end up feeling very comfortable around each other while at the same time not revealing a secret with quote-unquote time running out. So I'm not sure if maybe they haven't told each other what they're experiencing in the beginning of the book. And the whole time running out thing, I'm wondering if maybe that has to do with the fact that cystic fibrosis shortens the lifespan. This book comes out January 7th. The next book I'm looking forward to is The Magical Language of Others by E.J. Koh. This is an adult memoir. This memoir is presented as letters from mother to daughter. After moving to California from Korea, EJ's parents decide to move back to Korea because the father obtains a job. This leaves EJ and her brother in California. After leaving, EJ's mother writes her letters in Korean, which EJ doesn't understand until years later when she begins to translate them. This memoir discusses themes of forgiveness, intergenerational trauma, sacrifice, love, heartbreak, joy. I also read in a review that this memoir also mentions some disordered eating and suicidal ideation. This book comes out January 7th. The next book is Minor Feelings, An Asian American Reckoning by Kathy Park Hong. The author's parents were Korean immigrants. This is an adult book. It's part memoir, part cultural criticism, part history. The author combines essays to look at topics such as America, shame, family, and friendship. It sounds like this book also discusses the vast financial range and types of employment of Asian Americans in this country. But yet, us Asian Americans are stereotyped as being only high achieving and making tons of money. This book comes out February 25th. The next book is Afterlife by Julia Alvarez. This is an adult fiction. This story is about an immigrant writer who was going through a life transition of retiring from her job. Then her husband dies. After this, one night she comes home and finds a pregnant, undocumented teenager at her doorstep. The description of this book reads, "What do we owe those in crisis in our families, including maybe especially members of our human family? How do we live in a broken world without losing faith in one another or ourselves? And how do we stay true to those glorious souls we have lost?" This book comes out April 7th. The next book is Humpty Dumpty Lived Near a Wall by Derek Hughes and illustrated by Nathan Christopher. This is a children's illustrated book. This is a twist on the Humpty Dumpty nursery rhyme. People who received early copies of this book talked about how much they loved the illustrations in this book. In this version, Humpty questions the point of the wall. I get a sense that the end of this might be slightly dark, which is why one of the major bookstores says it's for ages 10 years old and up. So I'm thinking Humpty may end up broken like the original rhyme. However, this book is said to cover topics of ambition, perseverance, and dreaming. This book comes out January 7th. The next book is Darius the Great Deserves Better by Adib Khorram. This is a young adult fiction. This is the sequel to Darius the Great Is Not Okay, which is one of the books that led to the creation of this podcast. Darius the Great Is Not Okay is about a teen who is living with functional depression. He's half Persian, half Caucasian, and the book discusses his experience in trying to get his family to understand his depression and also provides a good example of how to be supportive to a friend who is living with depression. You can watch the video I did on this book on my website if you want to know more. So this sequel takes place after the first book when he returns home from his trip to Iran. Now he's in a relationship with his first boyfriend, playing soccer, and interning at a shop that sells what he loves, tea. This book also talks about how his grandmothers come into town for a long visit, and he isn't sure if they like him. And he's having doubts for his love for tea, and it sounds like he's having doubts about his boyfriend while having a possible new love interest. This book comes out August 25th. The next book is Darling Rose Gold by Stephanie Robel. This is an adult fiction. In this book, a woman was led to believe she was ill for the first 18 years of her life. Her mother told her that she had an allergic reaction to everything. She had to be in a wheelchair and spent a long time in the hospital. Her mother ends up going to prison and then, upon release, asks her daughter to take her into her home. And the daughter says yes. I get Gypsy Blanchard vibes from this book. Some of you may have seen the series or heard about it. It's called The Act on Hulu, which was based off of the real story of Gypsy Blanchard, whose mother led her to believe she was ill. This was a Munchausen's by proxy case, so parts of the description of this book, Darling Rose Gold, reminded me of that Gypsy Blanchard case and her mother. However, Gypsy Blanchard and her mother had a totally different ending. All in all, I'm intrigued to read this. This book comes out March 7th. Another book I'm looking forward to is All Adults Here by Emma Straub. This is an adult fiction. The main character in this book experiences a trauma, which was witnessing a bus accident. Interestingly, the trauma brings up a memory she had repressed about her own parenting many decades earlier. The book also discusses current challenges her adult children are having and the decisions some of them are making. This book comes out May 5th. The next book is Swimming Lessons by Lily Reinhart. You might recognize the name, especially if you're a Riverdale fan. Lily plays Betty on the CW TV show Riverdale. This book is a nonfiction and poetry. It sounds like this book is very true to what I like about her. Lily is very vocal on social media about mental health, mental illness, and positive body image. In this book, through poetry, Lily explores love, anxiety, depression, and fame. This comes out May 5th. The next book is The Easy Part of Impossible by Sarah Tomp. This is a young adult fiction. This is about two characters who form a bond in the form of a friendship. One is a female character who is living with ADHD and was an elite diver, but is no longer on the team due to an injury. The other character is on the autism spectrum, and it's through the friendship with this character that, and feeling like she can open up to him, that the diver comes to terms with the abuse she experienced from her coach. This book comes out April 21st. The next book I'm looking forward to reading is Eat a Peach, a memoir by David Chang. David Chang founded the Momofuku restaurant group, which has created restaurants all over the world. He also hosted the Netflix series called Ugly Delicious, where in each episode he explains a dish, how it's made, and its origins. He's very talented and successful. In this memoir, he explains his experience with self-doubt and mental health. And he explains how he used cuisine as a way to combat feeling dissatisfied and to combat racism. This book comes out May 19th. The next book is Goodbye from Nowhere by Sarah Zarr. This is a young adult book about a boy who thought things with his family were fine until he finds out his mother is having an affair. Pressure is placed on him when his parents try to convince him to keep this a secret from other family members. He watches how the affair has an effect on friends and family and struggles with deciding where his obligations lie. This brought up memories of this TV show that I watched a long time ago. It was called Life as We Know It. It was on UPN channel. Ozzy Osbourne's daughter was an actress on that show. She did a very good job. And in that, there's one character in the show, a male who was an athlete, popular, just had this seemingly perfect, like, family and life, and then discovers that his mother is having an affair. Like, he literally catches her having an affair. And he was told by his mother to keep it a secret from the father. And it just brought up a lot. That was a really good show that brought up some pretty good issues. And he also went to a therapist in that show. And the therapist was played by Peter Dinklage, who later went on to be in Game of Thrones, which was pretty cool. So this sort of reminded me of that in a way. This book also discusses themes of anxiety and identity. This book comes out April 7th. The next book is Wintering: How I Learned to Flourish When Life Became Frozen by Catherine May. This is part memoir, part exploration about the author, who describes tough issues such as grief, mental illness, and a sudden change in life. This book discussed how she used nature and outdoors as a way to help get through low periods. I found this intriguing and want to read it to find out more of what this is about. This book comes out February 6th. The next book is If These Wings Could Fly by Kyrie McCauley. This is a young adult book that combines magical realism and domestic violence. In this story, the main character witnesses her parent lose his temper and break things in the house, but yet the house always seems to repair itself. While looking forward to college, she experiences guilt because this would mean leaving behind her sibling. This book comes out March 3rd. The next book, and the last book, is Almost American Girl by Robyn Tamanaha. This is a young adult graphic novel memoir. In this, the author discusses moving from Korea to Alabama without knowing English and the experience of culture shock and isolation until she discovers her love for the arts and is enrolled in a comic book class, which ends up leading to art as a future. This comes out January 28th. So this concludes my anticipated reads for 2020 so far. I'm sure I'll come across more as they are released and as I browse local bookstores and the public library. Thanks for listening. Like I said earlier, if you have any book suggestions or books you would like discussed on this podcast, definitely send me an email to booksbetweensessions@gmail.com. This could be books that have already been released or books you're also anticipating for 2020. If you're a mental health professional and either have a book you love or maybe have written one yourself and would like to be on the podcast, contact me at booksbetweensessions@gmail.com. Also, this podcast is not psychotherapy or counseling. If you need to speak with a professional, you should find one local to you and contact them directly. If this is an emergency, please call your local emergency number or go to your nearest emergency department. Thank you. Take care.